Hi, it's Mrs. Fawcett and Otis, and we're back today to read chapter 27 called The Broken Robot. Author Peter Brown has okayed teachers to read his books online, so we're doing this with his permission. Odie's interested in eating his bone today, so you might hear him chewing, but he wanted to be part of the video too, and I know the kids have missed him, so. Chapter 27, The Broken Robot. The Sharifs found their robot powered off, lying in the ditch by the road. Her left leg was crumpled beneath her torso, her right arm was twisted around a tree trunk, and her whole body was covered in new scrapes and dents. Together, the family heaved Roz into the bed of the pickup truck where Oscar was waiting. The dog sniffed her broken body while the Sharifs climbed in beside him. Then Rambler turned around. The road was littered with debris from the storm. The truck had to drive slowly. As they bounced along, Jad pressed the button on the back of Roz's head. She powered up and her garbled voice automatically said, "Hello, I'm Roz, Unit 7134, but you can call me Roz." Oscar licked the poor robot's face, and Jad leaned in close. "Roz, can you hear me? Are you okay?" "Hello, Jad. I have broken limbs and minor damage to my computer brain. My systems are now repairing. Please stand by." The robot's glowing eyes pulsed as her recovery program did its job, and before long, Roz sounded like her old self. "My computer brain is now fully functional." Jad wrapped his arms around the robot and sobbed. "I'm so sorry, Roz. It's my fault the tornado got you. Please don't be mad." Now Jaya was crying too. She pulled her brother and her dog and her robot into a big hug. Mr. Sharif wasn't much of a hugger, but he reached over and laid his hand on Roz's shoulder. They stayed like that for some time, quietly holding one another. The shock of the tornado was fresh, and it felt good to be together. "Mr. Sharif, I apologize for leaving the farm without your permission," said the robot. The man smiled. "No apologies, Roz. I'm just glad you're alive." "How are the cows?" asked Roz. "The farm is a mess, but the cows are fine," said Mr. Sharif. "We'll take you to the repair shop now, and you'll be with the herd soon." Chapter 28, The Shop. It was a small, sleepy farm town. A few trucks glided down the streets. A few humans sat on porches. A few stores lined the main square. Rambler parked in front of a bright white building. Then Mr. Sharif left the children with Roz, and he limped inside. "Welcome to the tech lab," said a woman in a white suit. "My name is Nadine. How can I help you?" Mr. Sharif was distracted by all the robots on display in the shop. They came in a dazzling variety of designs and sizes and colors. Standing still, eyes glowing, they calmly waited for someone to put them to work. When the man spotted a Razum unit, he suddenly remembered why he was there. "I'm the owner of Hilltop Farms," he said, "and we were just hit by a tornado." "I heard the siren," said Nadine. "Is everyone okay?" "My family is okay, but I got a Razum unit outside who's in bad shape." The woman called over her shoulder, "Patch, bring the Razum repair kit." A robot marched into the room carrying a large case. He looked similar to the Razum unit robot, but he was shorter and wider. The word Patch was lightly engraved in his torso. Mr. Sharif led Nadine and Patch out to the truck, where the children were chatting with their robotic friends. Patch quickly scanned Roz's broken body and announced the cost of the repairs. The man stroked his chin, mulling over his options, until the children blurted, "Just fix her!" Mr. Sharif nodded, and Patch sprang into action. With smooth, precise movements, the robot gently placed Roz on the ground. Then he grasped her broken arm and her broken leg and twisted. There was a thwip sound as each limb popped loose. Then he took new limbs out of the case and thwip popped them into place. In a matter of seconds, Roz was whole and back on her feet. "Robots never seem to amaze me," said Mr. Sharif, admiring Roz's shiny new limbs. "The makers really outdid themselves with these ROSM units," said Nadine. "However, you have our most basic unit. Would you like to upgrade her software, or adjust her settings, or polish these scratches?" "Will that cost extra?" Nadine smiled. "I'm afraid so." "This basic unit is fine," said Mr. Sharif, "but I need to order a work crew. Could you send one over to fix up my farm?" "Not a problem," said Nadine. "I'll send a crew over immediately." Chapter 29, The Aftermath. Hilltop Farm was hardly recognizable. Buildings were flattened, equipment was missing, debris was everywhere. The farm had no electricity and the computer system was down. As Roz picked her way through the rubble, she realized she was off the grid. It would be hours before Mr. Sharif could track her electronic signal again. Was this the moment for her escape? No, Roz couldn't leave the Sharifs. Not like this. Instead, she did what she could to help. The tunnel had left behind a winding trail of destruction. Thankfully, it hadn't destroyed everything. The barn was leaning to one side, but it was still standing. Roz forced open the door and found the cows nervously bunched together in the corner. "You are all safe now," said Roz in her calmest voice. "How is everyone feeling?" The robot was answered by a chorus of moos. "How do you think we feel? I'm a nervous wreck. My whole life flashed before my eyes." The robot raised her hands to quiet the crowd. "I'm afraid the tornado destroyed much of the farm, including the milking parlor." The cows gasped. "But my udders are about to burst," cried Tess. "Would you like me to milk you the old-fashioned way?" said Roz. One look at the robot's clumpy mechanical hands and Tess shook her head. "No thanks, I can wait." "An emergency crew is on the way," Roz explained, "but we cannot be in here while they work. Please follow me." Roz carefully led the herd outside, through the wreckage and down to the pasture. Some of the fences were missing and the herding machine was broken, but the cows promised not to wander off, and they began to graze in the wind-blown grass. 3 massive trucks rambled up the driveway, doors swung open, and a crew of robot workers climbed out. The lead robot checked in with Roz as the others began to unload supplies from the trucks. Then the crew got down to business. Power tools buzzed, debris was cleared. Fences were mended, holes were dug, machines were repaired or replaced. Beams in walls and roofs went up. Equipment and pipes and wires were installed. Clearly, these robots were designed to work in teams. The Sharifs wandered out back and stood with Roz. They watched as the farm was rebuilt before their very eyes. Several crew members marched over to the house, fixed a hole in the roof, and replaced the shattered windows. Finally, rubble and tools were loaded into the truck. The robots fell into line. "Are you satisfied with our work?" said the crew leader. "I am satisfied," said Roz. At those words, the robot climbed back into their trucks and drove away. Hours after it had been devastated by a tornado, Hilltop Farm was better than ever. Chapter 30, The Gift. The children walked into the machine shed, past rows of parked farm machines, and found Roz tuning up the milk truck. "We got you a gift," said Jad, smiling. The robot felt something like surprise when the boy handed her a box, wrapped in silver paper with a big bow on top. "Can you guess what it is?" said Jaya. Roz started guessing. A bucket, a rock, a hammer, a turtle, a can of... Okay, stop guessing, said Jaya. "Don't forget to read the card," said Jad. Nestled under the bow was a little card. Roz opened it and read the following words. They were written in Jad's messy handwriting. "Dear Roz, thank you for taking such good care of our farm and our family. We spent all our savings on this gift, so you'd better like it. Love, Jaya and Jad. P.S. Please tell us more stories about the robot on the island as soon as possible." "Thank you for the nice card," said Roz, although the handwriting could use some improvement. Jad rolled his eyes and said, "Open your gift." The robot untied the bow and tore off the paper and lifted the lid from the box. Inside was a tool belt. It was made of dark leather and had a wide strap and different sized pockets for holding different kinds of tools. "We thought this might make your work a little easier," said Jaya. "It's designed specifically for Rosm robots," said Jad, "so it should fit you perfectly." The children helped Roz put on her new tool belt. Rather than going around the robot's waist like a normal belt, it went diagonally across her torso. Jad looped it over Roz's left shoulder and down her right hip. Jaya laced the straps through the buckle and tightened it until the tool belt was snug and secure across her chest. "Do you like it?" asked Jaya. "I like it very much," said Roz. "Thank you for the lovely gift." The children smiled and hugged the robot. They really seemed to care about her. Roz wondered if they cared enough to help her escape from the farm. One of these days, she would have to risk everything to tell them the truth. For now, however, she did the next best thing. She led Jaya and Jad out to the oak tree and told them another story about the robot on the island. Chapter 31, The Campfire. Wood smoke billowed up from the backyard and drifted across the farm. Roz was building a campfire for the Sharifs. In her old life, the robot made fire by cracking special stones together until she got a spark. In her new life, she used a lighter. The family sat around the rippling flames and gazed up at the stars. The dogs stretched out on the warm ground. The robot was standing nearby, but her thoughts were far away. Her computer brain was scrolling back through its memories of campfires and of stargazing with Brightville. Fluffy white marshmallows were skewered onto the ends of sticks and then roasted above the flames. The children laughed as their marshmallows caught fire. They liked them charred on the outside and gooey on the inside. Their father preferred his evenly browned. When the Sharifs weren't stuffing their mouths, they were chatting happily. "That's the space station," said Jaya, pointing to a tiny dot that was slowly moving through the sky. "I can't believe that people live up there." "Animals live there too," said Jad. "The station has a farm. We should bring our cows up and show those space farmers how it's done." "I think our cows are perfectly content right here on Earth," said Mr. Sharif, "and so am I." Once the marshmallows were gone, Jay and Jad snuggled up with Oscar, stared into the flames, and asked their father about the old days. But the children were just too cozy to stay awake for long, so Mr. Sharif spoke to Roz instead. "We made campfires all the time when I was a boy." The man poked the coals with his marshmallow stick, and the glowing embers floated into the air. "The whole family would sit around like this telling stories. We had a nice life here. But then my brother and sister moved to the city. My parents got old, and everyone expected me to take over the farm. I couldn't run this place myself," he went on, "so I hired Jamila. I did the farm work, and she managed the business. We made a great team, and then we fell in love. When Jamila was pregnant with Jad, we bought a few auto machines to help out. Then Jaya showed up, and we bought a few more. If I'd have known one of those machines would be the death of her." The farmer's voice trailed off. Roz wanted to know more about Jamila and about Mr. Sharif and about the rest of his family. But a normal robot wouldn't ask personal questions. So she kept her questions to herself and dropped another log in the fire. Chapter 32, The Old Barn. Long ago, Hilltop Farm was a very different place. The original farmers grew vegetable gardens and fruit orchards. They raised chickens and sheep and goats. The farm had changed a lot since then, but there were still signs of its past. Low stone walls lined some of the fields. A rusty tractor sat in the weeds, and hidden within a densely wooded grove was an old barn. The barn hadn't been used in generations. Over the years, trees had quietly grown up around it, and moss had spread across its roof. But the barn was still strong and solid, and Roz wanted to take a look inside. The big barn door screeched along its rails. "Hello," said the robot, peering in the darkness. "Is anyone here?" A mouse squeaked and scurried off out of sight. And then Roz had the barn to herself. She stepped through the doorway and switched on her headlights. The vast interior was crisscrossed with thick wooden beams. Stairways and ramps led to the lofts and platforms. Lanterns hung from hooks on the walls. Old-fashioned farm equipment lay here and there. The barn still had the faint smell of farm animals, even though none had lived there in ages. A large trunk sat on a work table covered in dust. Roz carefully opened the lid and examined its contents. A collection of farming magazines, a pair of leather gloves, a pencil nub, and then she noticed a small journal. The name Cyrus Sharif was elegantly scrawled across the cover. The pages were filled with his handwritten notes and his hand-drawn diagrams about raising livestock and growing crops and building barns, about working the land and with the help of strong animals and simple machines. Cyrus Sharif had also jotted down his thoughts about the long history of farming. He believed that the modern world owed its entire existence to ancient farms. When early humans started growing their food, those farms were small and primitive, but they supported villages, which became towns, which became cities. The writings were so wise and insightful that Roz read the journal from cover to cover. By the end, she almost felt like she knew Cyrus Sharif. Whoever he was, the journal was a treasure, and she tucked it in the pocket of her tool belt for safekeeping.